We're going to do another flipped lesson. This is on section 3 of chapter 4. So you're going to write all of this down in your notebook. So you're going to write down the title and then this information right here. You do not need to copy down the graph. So we're going to write rules for linear functions. So rules for linear functions, what does that mean? So the only thing we're going to do is we're going to write an equation in the form of y equals mx plus b, which we've been doing. So I might give you a graph, I might give you a table, and I'm going to show you how to write an equation based on that information. So write all this down in your notebook. If you have a question, go ahead and write that in the side of your notebook, and we can go over that tomorrow during class. I don't expect that you know the information perfectly, but I do want to make sure that you have a basic understanding so that tomorrow we can do some problems during class. So write down all the notes. Remember, if you need to pause the video. When you're ready to move on, go ahead and move on. So again, write this down in your notebook. So I'm going to give you some different examples. So my first example is writing a rule from words or looking at a word problem. Okay, so you're going to write all of this in your notebook. So if you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause the video. Write down this question, and then I'm going to show you how to take the information to write it in y equals mx plus b form. So we're looking at a rate for internet access is $15 each month, plus, so right there's a keyword, 0.25 per hour. Again, the per hour is another hint of use. Write a function rule that shows how the monthly bill depends upon the number of hours used. So we know our monthly bill depends on our $15 a month plus 0.25 per hour. So write all this down. So I can put that into the y equals mx plus b form because I know y is my monthly bill. I know 0.25 per hour is my mx, and my plus b, or where do I need to start each month? I'm already starting at $15. So that's how you can take a word problem and make it into an equation in the y equals mx plus b form. So if you have a question, write that down in your notebook so we can go over that tomorrow during class. Some other questions I might ask are, okay, what was the initial cost and what's the rate of change? So going back to this, so you can look at your y-intercept. So your initial cost was $15. And then you know your rate of change is your slope, and that's 0.25 cents per hour. Again, write all this down in your notebook, and we'll go over things tomorrow in class if you have questions. Okay, now you're going to do your own. I need you to write all of this down in your notebook. Don't skip it. I will look tomorrow. So copy all this down. If you need to pause the video, well, you're going to need to pause it because you're going to need to write a function rule that shows how the account balance depends upon the number of stands bought. So you should see a text box on the right. Go ahead and enter your answer in the text box on the right. And remember, your answer needs to be in y equals mx plus b form. So we're trying to find y. B is your y-intercept, or your initial cost. And then this is your slope of your line, or the change. Okay, so now check your answer. You might need to go back and change your answer if you need to. So here I've written my form. It's not quite in y equals mx plus b form, so I'm going to rewrite it as y equals negative 42x plus 298. So I started with $298, and I am decreasing at $42 per stand. So my initial value should be $298. That shouldn't be a negative. My rate of change is negative 42. So please write that down. Again, if you have questions, write those down on the side in your notebook, and we can go over those tomorrow during class. Please write this down. So this is example 2, writing a rule from a table. You must copy down the table, so go ahead and copy down the table. So if you need to pause the video, pause the video. So I want to write a function rule for the data in the table. So first I need to find the slope. So I look at the change in my points to figure out the slope. And then I look at the table. I can see where x equals 0, so that must be my y-intercept. And then I can use y equals mx plus b, and I can plug in what I just figured out. So we write all that in. So there's my equation based on the data table. If you have questions, write those down on the side of your notebook. We can go over those tomorrow during class. Okay, now you're going to check this one out on your own. So the only other thing is you're going to have to work your way backwards to figure out what your, if x is 0, what would y be? So that gives you your y-intercept. So write all this in your notebook. I should see all of this in your notebook. If you skip that, well, you might have to then do that during homework circle. So again, you have plenty of time. Write this in your notebook. Pause the video if you need to pause. You should see a text box on the right. Go ahead and enter your answer into the text box on the right. Okay, now you're going to check your answer. So I should see that you've corrected this in your notebook. So when x was 0, y was also 0 because my rate is -3. So that was -3. This is -4.5, so this also has to be -4.5. So I know 0, 0. My slope, don't forget you want to take y over x. So I'm going to take 18 over 13.5, sorry, and 12 minus 9, which gives me 4.5 over 3. But I can't have a decimal, but I could actually look and I can go 3 goes into 4.5 1.5 times, or I can say 45 over 30, and then I know it's 1 and 15/30, which is 1.5. So here's my final equation of my line. So make sure you know how to do that. If you have questions, again, please write those down in the side of your notebook. Okay, now we're going to write an equation from a graph. You must, yes, copy down the graph because that's the important part of the whole equation. So if you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause the video. When you're ready to move on, move on. Okay, so my graph is linear, so I know y equals mx plus b. I know the line intersects the y-axis at 4, so I know that's my b. All right, so there's my 4. I know my slope is 8 over 4, or 2. So there's 8, right, for the going up. There's 4 going left and right, so that's my x, so it's 8 over 4. If I simplify that, it becomes 2. So then can I write my equation as y equals 2x plus 4? So make sure that's in your notebook. Okay, now you're going to do one on your own. So again, you need to copy down the graph. That's the important part. Give me the equation of the line. Show me all the work. Don't just give me an answer. I need to see all of the work to get there like I just did. If you need to rewind the video because you didn't write down all the notes, please rewind the video. You should see a text box on the right. Please write your equation of your line in the text box on the right. Okay, here's my answer. So I know my y-intercept was 4. I know my slope is -2 over 5. I know it's a negative because my line is going down to the negatives. I can connect these two. So this is 2, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know I have to go down 2 and over 5 to get to my next point. That's how I got my slope. And then I can just plug that into y equals mx plus b. Okay, because my y-intercept is my b. There's my slope. So double check, make sure you did that all correctly. Okay, there's a couple more ways to write an equation of the line. So we're going to write an equation given the slope and 1 point. So write down all these notes, and then I'm going to give you an example of how to do this. Oops, sorry. So you're going to write the equation with the given slope. You're going to plug in a point that was given, solve for b. I'll go over this in a minute, so go ahead and write it down. If you need to pause the video, pause the video. Okay, here I'm actually going to now use that information. So I know I have a slope of -2. It passes through 5, 0. So remember the first step was to plug in my x and my y into my equation, which I did. I'm solving for b. I don't know what my b is. I got to figure that out. I'm going to use my algebra skills, and I know b is now 10. Okay, so I know what my slope is. I know what b is. So now I'm going to rewrite the equation again using my slope and my b, my y-intercept. Again, if you need to rewind the video, go ahead and rewind the video. If you have questions, write those on the side. Don't just say, I don't get it. You need to look to see what we've done, and you need to ask questions and write those questions down. Okay, now you're going to try one on your own. So if you know the slope is 2 and it passes through that line, that spot, use what we just did to calculate the y equals mx plus b. You should see a text box on the right. All right, here's my answer. So the first thing I did was I plugged in my 2 points to my y equals mx plus b, solved for b. That's all I have to do. Then I rewrite the equation using my b and my slope. Okay, I know your brains are probably steaming by now, which is great. So the last one, this is it, last one. I want to write an equation of a line in slope-intercept form of the line passing through my 2 points. Okay, so I have these 2 points. What could I do with these 2 points? What can you do when you have 2 points? The first thing you should do is find the slope. Okay, so I'm going to find the slope of my line. So I'm plugging in what I know. So I know my slope. I know my slope is -4/4, -1. And then I'm going to choose one of the points, doesn't matter which one, and I'm going to do what I just did. I'm going to plug it in to solve for b. So I solve for b, and now I'm just going to rewrite my formula again using my slope that I calculated and my b that I calculated. Okay, so again, if you have a question, write those down on the side, circle where you're lost or what you don't get, and guess what? You're going to try one on your own. Okay, so go ahead, try that on your own. You might need to. Yes, you will need to. Pause the video. And when you're ready, and put your answer in the text box on the right. Okay, here's my answer. Check your answer with mine. Make sure we're both correct, and I should see you tomorrow in class. If you have questions, you're going to write those down in your notebook, and you're going to ask those questions tomorrow during class.